ये जो पहला टॉपिक है इसका, इस यूनिट का जो पहला टॉपिक था, फाउंडेशन ऑफ जम्मू एंड कश्मीर स्टेट एंड ट्रीटी ऑफ अमृतसर, वो हमने कल कंप्लीट कर लिया। एंड टुडे we are going to take the second topic. Now, regarding this second topic, it is about the nature of Dogra state. It's the topic just the nature of Dogra state. As far as this topic is concerned, जैसा मैं आपको थोड़ा बहुत रिमाइंड करूंगा, yesterday we discussed the treaty of Amritsar, and while discussing this treaty of Amritsar, we said that this treaty led to foundation of a new state, the state of Jammu and Kashmir, which combined two parts, Jammu and Kashmir together, and led to foundation of a new state that is called as Jammu and Kashmir state. Magar this treaty of Amritsar not only led to the foundation of this new state of Jammu and Kashmir, but also it established a new rule over this new state, and that was called as Dogra. और उसी का आपको बताना है कि नेचर ऑफ डोगरा रूल क्या था। Now, before I will start with this nature of Dogra state, let me just make it clear first that this Dogra rule started with महाराजा गुलाब सिंह। इसके बारे में मैंने कल थोड़ी बहुत ब्रीफ हिस्ट्री बताई आपको। This महाराजा और राजा गुलाब सिंह, he actually was a Dogra. That is why it is called Dogra rule. He was a Dogra from Jammu. His ancestry belongs to Jammu. His ancestral land is Jammu, and he belonged to a clan called Dogra. And on that reason, the rule was called as Dogra rule. As you know, this Gulab Singh was by blood a ruler. He belonged to the ruling dynasty. He was the Sikon, or you can say he was from the lineage of Raja Ranjit Dev, the founder of Jammu. तभी lineage बन सकता है, descendancy से सही है, उसी grand family से belong करता है, a ruling family. So for that reason, the royal blood was circulating in his body, or he was a Sikon of the royal blood. बल्कि क्या writers, some of the writers even go to the extent of saying that Dogras belonged to the Rajput clan. Himachal is actually Rajputs. And you might have known, or you might be knowing, who were Rajputs. अगर आप इंडियन हिस्ट्री कंटेक्स्ट में देखोगे, if you see in the Indian history context, the Raj have a very what you call as a mystery form of origin, or their origin was a mystery, because no ancient literature ever mentions Rajputs. अगर ancient Indian literature में कुंजेश Rajput term का संदाज़ है. It was from 8th century the term began to circulate. The Rajput term. जब उसने किसी Rajput सासली, थोड़ा मैं आइडिया देती हूँ आपको Rajput कौन थे. So in 8th century we see the Rajputs began to surface in Indian history. Then later on the Rajputs became the ruling dynasties and ruling powers in India. क्योंकि इंडिया में एक कास्ट सिस्टम था, एक वर्ना सिस्टम पहले से ही था, और राजपूत पहले जमाने में नहीं थे, तो एक बड़ा क्वेश्चन खड़ा हो गया कि इन द कास्ट हायरार्की वेयर टू प्लेस दीज राजपूत्स. And since the Rajputs were rulers, they became rulers. They were people who knew martial art. They were people who were very militaristic, who knew military skills, who were great warriors. So therefore, they were placed in the category of Kshatriyas. The Rajputan ne ashwan kya ट्रेट ईश्वर मानना. राजपूत को हम एसोसिएट करते हैं किसी बहुत सारे ट्रेट्स के साथ, लाइक फॉर देयर कैवेलरी यानी ब्रेवरी, फॉर देयर वेयरिंग सिकल्स, फॉर देयर रूलिंग क्वालिटीज, फॉर बीइंग गुड सोल्जर्स. इसलिए देयर वाज नो डाउट दैट दीज पीपल मस्ट बी प्लेस्ड इन द क्षत्रिय कैटेगरी. और warrior writer Shimanand के Dogras too were Rajputs. So whatever the Dogras through the Treaty of Amritsar became the rulers of Jammu and Kashmir state. Now the question is, what was the nature of this state? As you know, this Dogra rule, which started in Jammu and Kashmir from 1846 and it lasted till 1947. The big question that arises is, what was its nature? How the state behaved? What is the approach of the state? On that basis, the historians have categorized the state various. Dispositioners, activities of state. तो उनकी बिना पर हिस्टोरियंस इसको बहुत सारे लेबल्स देते हैं. A state has various labels. Like some say it was an autocratic and a despotic state. बस सोचो ना, मुझे आज अगर मतलब है ये किस स्टेट का छो, कोई बोलेगा ये रिपब्लिकन स्टेट है, किसको बोलो कि अब ये सोशलिस्ट स्टेट है, किसको बोलो कि अब ये डेमोक्रेटिक स्टेट है, किसी स्टेट को बोलो कि अब ये वेलफेयर स्टेट है, किसी को बोलो कि अब ये डिक्टेटर स्टेट है, किसी को बोलो कि अब ये मिलिट्री स्टेट है, किसी को बोलो कि अब ये पुलिस स्टेट है. So states can be categorized in various ways based on their mode of activities, based on their disposition in the current. So वही मैं कह रहा हूं, on that basis, it is a century long period, 1846 to 1947, जो एक century rule डोगरा rule, और एक century में क्या rules on the approach, on that very basis, the historians have categorized it variously which one या so autocratic the despotic state या with the authoritarian state, whatever term you may like, despotic, autocratic, authoritarian. Some say it was a sectarian and a communal state. सेक्टेरियन तो कम्युनल स्टेट को स्टेट जहां पर आप एक रिलीजन को प्रेफर करते हो दूसरे रिलीजन पर, you give preference to one religion and people of one religion over the other. And some say, some क्या मैं खुद मतलब इस हक में हूं कि it can be categorized as a feudal state on various reasons. तरह चीजें में तो you can call it an autocratic state because it at times behaved very autocratically. You can call it a sectarian state because at times it seems that the state gave preference to people of one community over other. And thirdly, you can categorize it as a feudal state as well. Now coming to the first point, how the state can be called as autocratic, despotic and authoritarian state. परंतु ये क्या गोया autocratic है, authoritarian and despotic. Autocratic rule को शुरू where the rule is with few hands. Then नफर जोर कारण सोरे decide. दो चार आदमी डिसाइड करते कि what will be the affairs of the state. An authoritative rule where the power is centralized. इधर power is centralized, power is जमा, फिर एक हाथ में हो या दो तीन हाथों में. That is called an authoritative state, where all the dictators come from center, come from a particular authority. And rest needs to follow it. And despotic, you know, where all the powers are in one hand. So if you see the terms of the Treaty of Amritsar, very first term, the British government transfers forever, permanently, in independent possession of all the territories to Maharaja Gulab Singh. This is the chief sentence. ये territories transfer की गई permanently इसको, and he is in independent possession of that. इसको कोई और जो है साथी नहीं, independent possession. ये इसकी independent possession है, यानी खुद इसका मालिक है. और फिर टर्म कहते हैं महाराजा गुलाब सिंह. He was not a Raja Gulab Singh or an ordinary Gulab Singh now. He was a Maharaja. Maharaja मतलब वो राजा हूँ राजा. नहीं तो लग चीफ है ऐसे इलाके में ये उनका राजा है. So his status was elevated from being a Raja to a Maharaja. That means he is now the whole owner of this land. And it is in independent position of him now. So one which is a despotic, authoritative, now the Maharaja has no other power with whom he has to share his power. He is in sole possession of this land and he is also independent. Whatever he will do, he is free to do that. Now, how the state behaved authoritatively, how the state was despotic, you will see it from several references. So, ये वारिया examples और justify ऐसे करो. If there is a question, the Dogra rule was a despotic, autocratic, and an authoritarian rule. Justify. Such was examples. आपको convince करना है इस evaluator को कि despotic rule. तो इसके लिए मैं कुछ रेफरेंस बताऊंगा आपको. Firstly, if you look at the rule during the century-long period, there were 4 rulers who ruled over this century-long period, and that is Gulab Singh, followed by Maharaja Ranbir Singh, followed by Maharaja Pratap Singh, and lastly followed by Maharaja Hari Singh. It's so doesn't transfer power from father to son. So it's a hereditary rule. ये hereditary rule था, a dynastic rule था, where ruler was supreme. If the ruler was supreme, his word was law. His zuban was near source law, and nobody could dare to challenge that word, which was a kind of a law in itself. Sakare ne kyun chale? और रूल तो छ एक सी डायनास्टी में, एक सी खानदान में. So in that sense, it was authoritarian rule. His power concentrated एक सी जगह. It is Maharaja's. And with whom he likes to share power, he decides. It is not people are taking power from him. It is not there is democracy and people are raising voice. No. It is Maharaja who is ruling according to his will. And whatever pleases him, he rules accordingly. Back example अगर बताऊँ one how the state was authoritarian despotic. कोई क्या पहला मैंने बोला कि ये जो रूल है वो एक ही जगह है, एक ही खानदान में है. तो इन चीज if you look at ruler and his powers, आप तो आज democracies वुचो. In modern democracies, the ruler is not supreme. And who is supreme then? The ruler is not supreme. Who is supreme? It is law. It is constitution. And ruler is under constitution. He is under law. He is not above law. So modern democracies also. मगर डोगरा रूल में क्या देखते हो आप कि रूलर was law himself. So स्पाने लाते. You will see that during the period of Maharaja Ranbir Singh, the son of Gulab Singh, that a law system was formulated, and law system was formulated at the instance of Dogra ruler Maharaja Ranbir Singh, और इसको नाम ही रखा गया रंबीर दंड बीदी. Ranbir Dand, D-A and then Dand justice as BD, B-I-D-H-I. इधर इंग्लिश पर बना है Ranbir Penal Code. तो इस रूलर बनाना हुआ लॉ, और रूलर के नाम पर लॉ को नाम भी रखा जाता है. तमिल को रूलर is supreme there. The law is made by ruler, and that means जो law show it is subservient to ruler. It is not applicable to ruler because ruler has formulated and bears his name. इतना ही नहीं, you can quote several examples as well. The Maharajas, right from Gulab Singh till Hari Singh's late period, they were unwilling to share power. थोड़ी बहुत काउंसिल फॉर्मेशन हो गई, लेकिन काउंसिल बनी है मतलब मेंबर 5 मेंबर खास, मगर they were chosen by ruler themselves. They was ruler current pan choose for the sake of administration कि मेरा कारोबार चल रहा. because government challenge, because ruler can't look after everything. So for that purpose, he had some little council, but these council members were appointed by the ruler himself. So he can choose. इतने पसंदीदा नफर पसंद होंगे जो उसका मानते होंगे. Those who will not react, those who will not oppose, and they too had only advisory powers. But advisory, they had advice. All the powers actually were in the hands of the ruler. They had to also take dictates from the ruler. Given to us to dictate, as a ruler's shape. So in that sense also, it was an authoritarian or an autocratic rule. Then going further, the rulers had curbed what we know today as freedom of expression. लोगों को freedom of expression नहीं. There were no newspapers in the state till 1920s. The newspapers were allowed in the state. Maybe for this reason they might become the critiques of the ruling powers. They might expose the wrongdoings of the government. And it is said that in 1924, Muhammaddin Faq, a journalist from Punjab, Lahore, Punjab se journalist tha, Muhammaddin Faq, he applied Dogras for publication of newspapers. But he was denied the permission. And where Dogra ki baat kar newspaper start. But the permission was denied. Shall the despotic, the authoritarian state was because they're not allowing any kind of platform where people can express their views. इतना ही नहीं, in 1924, we see how people were allowed to express their opinion, even if they have mustered courage. In 1924, this Viceroy Lord Reading, he visited Kashmir, and some of the members from the Muslim community, they decided to submit a memorandum to him expressing their grievances. तो चलो स्थितियों के मेमोरेंडम यानी एक दरखास्त था वालों जैसे वाइसरॉयस की कि क्या शिकस्त और किस तरह से डिस्क्रिमिनेशन हो रही है हमारे साथ. And when Dogra rulers came to know about it, these Muslim delegation members, they were fired. The Khawaja Saddin Shah and others, Saifuddin and others were there. Some of them were imprisoned, some of them were exiled, and some of them, their property had been confiscated. And some of the members of the delegation, their property was confiscated by the state. For this reason that they had submitted a memorandum to Viceroy. It was actually then in 1934 that some kind of reform was introduced. When Praja Sabha assembly नाम जो आप मॉडर्न डेमोक्रेसीज में असेंबलीज देखते हो जहां पर लोग अपने नुमाइंदे चुनते हैं, that assembly was called as Praja Sabha. It was constituted in 1934. This Praja Sabha was to have 75 members. Praja Sabha was 5 members. This Praja Sabha was an assembly. You must keep it in mind. Pushwanta was a reformer. You go back towards the end of the Dogra period. It was in 1934 when it's coming time to the Dogra period. इसके बाद डोगरा पीरियड में ऊपर 12 साल तक ही रहा, मगर an effort was made in 1934. It was decided that Praja Sabha will be constituted. In Maharajan this pani marzi, तो Praja Sabha karo constitute. And this Praja Sabha, which was a kind of assembly, as we see in modern democracies, it was to have 75 members. And these 75 members, other than were all were not to be elected. Sari elected karin kiya. It was said that there will be official majority. Ke member kaise elect? But almost more than half of members were to be nominated. Nominated बोलो government अपनी मर्जी कमन करिए चुनिए. The majority were to be nominated, and minority was to be elected. And with regard to election, everybody had not voting right. It is only proper paid class, those who paid certain amount of taxes or certain amount of land revenue, were to be allowed to vote. But whatever, it was a very beginning towards the democracy, where Dogras decided to constitute a council which will guide the ruler and give some kind of representation to people in the administrative setup of the state. और एक चीज बताऊंगा मैं यहाँ पर कि we can't all blame Dogras for being autocratic and despotic. Because if you see in contemporary India around that same time, अगर इस पीरियड में 1846 ले लो आप, 1880 ले लो आप, 1870 ले लो आप, 1890 ले लो आप, India was ruled by British government. The so-called highly civilized nation of the world, the so-called mother of democracies. Being the mother of democracy, British government had not, even by 1890, introduced assembly or parliamentary system or a kind of a democracy in India. So to expect from Dogras around 19th century or in the beginning of 20th century that why didn't they introduce the democracy, it is totally wrong. Actually, around this time, even democracy was not the fashion in India, and despite the fact that India was ruled by British. And Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir was an isolated region now. It was an isolated region. Was ruled by British India. So there also we didn't see toward even by the end of 19th century there was any democratic system, or there was any representative institutions like parliamentary system or assemblies or other legislative council where people will elect their region of Jammu and Kashmir was something which is folly, and to blame Dogras for that is absolutely wrong. We have to judge every state by the morality of its age, by the spirit of its times. So, if Dogras were despotic, autocratic, and authoritarian, it was actually the spirit of the age. It was the morality of the age, or you can say the current age was like this one. So if they behaved in that way, it is not it was not so wrong. So I think